Welcome to AM Best Audio.
As AI adoption accelerates across the insurance industry, the challenge is shifting from experimentation to delivering real measurable impact at scale. I'm John Weber for Best Review Magazine. Joining us today is Brandon Nuttall, Chief Digital and AI Officer at Xceedance, who brings a practical perspective on where AI is working today, where risks are emerging, and how insurers can implement it responsibly in an increasingly complex landscape. Brandon, so glad you could join us today.
Thanks for having me.
So Brandon, where is AI delivering measurable value in insurance today, and where is it still mostly hype?
So I think a lot of the early deployments of AI in the insurance industry, they're really focused on things like personal productivity and kind of other, similar kind of mile wide, inch deep capability. And I think organizations are rapidly finding that there's not much value to come from those sorts of implementations. And so a new wave of providers have actually started looking at, very, very focused AI solutions for very specific parts of the supply chain, right? Things like document comparison tools, data extraction, claims fraud detection tools. And these are the places where a lot of the AI value is accumulating today.
What does the journey from AI experimentation to scaled governed implementation actually require?
So one of the paradoxes of AI is that AI is very, very easy to buy, but very, very difficult to implement in production, particularly in the insurance industry. And this is really because a lot of kind of core AI providers, really they don't have financial services as their target market, right? They don't necessarily have, a deep tie with a lot of the governance concerns and requirements that we have as being in a heavily regulated industry. So realistically, I focus on three things. I think one is the change management aspects, really understanding how you want to change your business to be able to deliver the benefits of the underlying technology. Two is really establishing the correct ownership of AI components. Too often AI transformation is looked at as a technology task and something that's owned by kind of corporate IT. Actually, it should be owned by the business, right? And then third, I think that there's a tendency to treat AI implementations as one-off pilots. And if you have that pilot mentality and carry that forward into production, organizations are rapidly finding that those sorts of implementations simply don't scale.
Brandon, what are the biggest pitfalls insurers run into when deploying Gen AI, and how can they avoid them?
So I'll touch on the change management point again. One of the key pitfalls of implementing Gen AI is that, as an AI capability is delivered, if that AI capability gives everybody across your organization an extra 15 minutes a day to have coffee, then realistically, you're not going to be able to realize the benefit from that implementation. So realistically, understanding what the benefits are that you want to drive and having a laser focus on actually the economic endpoint of the journey that you're on. I think two is organizations underestimate the regulatory minefield that currently exists around implementing any kind of technology, which is then further exacerbated by the implementation of AI. The regulatory environment around AI is rapidly evolving, and this rapid evolution has really created a moving target that a lot of organizations are still having trouble navigating.
Now, according to the Coalition Against Insurance Fraud costs the U.S. $308.6 billion annually. So, Brandon, how is the proliferation of Gen AI changing the fraud landscape, and what should insurers do differently right now?
It's a great question. So, traditionally, you could think about the fraudsters basically playing offense against insurance companies who've been playing defense. And I think for the longest time, certainly up until 2022, the defense has really been winning out. The sophisticated tools have existed for detecting fraud, particularly in commodity lines of business, and they were effectively used across the market. Now, I think the balance is shifting a little bit more toward playing offense. Good tools exist that can run on commodity hardware to be able to create, legitimately high quality fake documents that are difficult for insurers to actually detect. So realistically, I think that insurers need to understand primarily what are the capabilities of the Gen AI tools and take a fresh look at the processes that they need to implement to be able to detect and mitigate fraud. Fundamentally, these tools are more likely than ever to bypass automated judgment. it is much easier to create a legitimate looking image of a damaged motor vehicle than it is to detect that an AI has created that image. So essentially, it all comes down to the human. Even in a very, very digitized fraud process, anti-fraud, counter-fraud process, ultimately the judgment of the human is what insurance companies need to look to refine.
So how should insurers think about trust, security, and accountability as AI becomes embedded in decisions and customer interactions?
The way that our clients want to work with us is changing rapidly. It used to be the case, certainly in my lifetime, that nobody would imagine buying insurance over the phone, right? They wanted to buy insurance from a person across a desk. Now people make substantial purchases directly with their mobile phones, right? I think the customers are going to demand and will continue to demand that they interact with insurance companies in a manner of their choosing, which more and more is going to involve our consumers wanting to use AI, right? So realistically, this is a market force which will happen to us as an industry. And we need to think about, not in terms of AI being an optional part that we can pick up and use if we choose, but the customer expectations are rapidly going to come around to the fact that if we're not using AI, we'll be out of step with our customers. So I think part of this is about setting expectations with the next generation of insurance consumers. I think first, it's about helping our consumers understand that actually the person, the organization is always accountable for the ultimate decision. I think that there's a broad fear in the market that actually the machines will take over. And realistically, I think we need to reassure our people and our customers that that human that's in the loop is always going to have a critical decision to make as part of any decision-making process. Another thing to add is around governance. I think that the AI is never going to get off the ground if we can't make our regulators happy with what it is that we need to do as an industry to stay relevant. So continuing to partner with regulatory agencies in the UK, in the US, across Europe, in Asia Pacific is going to be key for making sure that the AI that we write or is written in one jurisdiction can be used in another.
Interesting conversation. Brandon, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today.
Thanks for having me.
That was Brandon Nuttall, Chief Digital and AI Officer at Xceedance. And I'm John Weber for Best Review Magazine.
Looking to get the full attention of the insurance industry? We have the platforms that will do just that. Whether it be AM Best TV, AM Best Audio, Best Review Magazine, or Best Day. Find out more by calling AM Best Advertising Sales at 908-439-2200, extension 5399, and have a great day.